She was betrayed by the two people she trusted most. But she didn't break, she bloomed. Welcome to the Velvet Story. This is The Velvet Rose. Chapter 1, The Whisper of Forever. Part 1 of The Velvet Rose. There are certain memories that don't age. They stay warm like the last light of a sunset, wrapped in golden nostalgia, untouched by the dust of time. For Rhea, that memory was the day she first met Arav. She was 23, soft-spoken, thoughtful, someone who found poetry in the ordinary. Her world was made of ink-stained journals, late-night cups of chai, and the belief that love, true, all-consuming love, still existed. In a world that moved too fast, she moved slowly, deliberately. She believed in pauses between words, in holding eye contact, and in meaning every, I love you. And Arav, he was everything her heart had dreamed of but didn't dare believe could be real. He was the boy with a crooked smile and an old camera. The kind who spoke with metaphors, who noticed the way shadows curved around her face when she read. Who sent her songs at midnight with captions like, "This reminded me of the way you look at rain." He didn't just love her, he saw her. Every fear, every dream, every quiet part of her she had tucked away behind smiles and silence. To fall for Arav didn't feel like falling. It felt like floating. Every love story starts with a spark, a whisper, a moment you don't realize is the beginning until you look back. For them, it began with shared coffees and ended with shared dreams. Days melted into nights spent wrapped in blankets and plans, traveling the world. Opening a cafe, publishing a book together. Their future was a page they were writing in unison, sentence by sentence. And in every one of those pages, there was Meher, Rhea's best friend, her sister in everything but blood. The girl who had been with her since their first scraped knee, their first heartbreak, their first rebellious decision to dye their hair purple in college. Meher was loud, luminous, unapologetically alive. Where Rhea was calm seas, Meher was crashing waves. She danced through rooms and always left a mark, always caught the eye. Rhea adored her, envied her sometimes, but never doubted her loyalty. The three of them, together, felt like a storybook. Laughter echoing in the halls of their lives, countless photos on rooftops, late-night drives with music too loud and secrets too deep. People often joked they were a movie waiting to happen. But life doesn't always follow the script we write in our heads. Sometimes, it burns it in front of us. The shift was quiet. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was small things. A look too long between Arav and Meher. A message read late at night. A silence that used to be filled with warmth now felt heavy. She felt it, in her gut, in her bones, but she told herself she was being paranoid. Arav loved her. Meher loved her. This was her circle, her people, her heart. One evening, she had just come back from a solo poetry reading. Her first. She was glowing, proud, carrying flowers from strangers who had heard her voice and wept with her words. She wanted to surprise him. She never meant to walk in unannounced. But the universe doesn't ask for permission before it shatters your world. She stepped into his apartment, her second home, and heard laughter. Two voices, familiar, comfortable, too comfortable. She paused in the hallway. The door to the bedroom was slightly ajar. The light was soft, and in that moment, she became both the girl she was and the ghost of who she was about to become. She pushed the door open. Time stopped. Arav, Meher, their bodies tangled, their eyes wide, their souls caught mid-sin. They looked at her like deer in headlights. Not out of guilt, but out of fear that their secret had simply come to light too soon. Rhea stood there. No tears, no screams, just silence, the kind of silence that scars. Meher pulled away, wrapping the sheet around her body like it could shield her from the truth. Rhea, she started. But Rhea raised her hand. She didn't need answers. She didn't want apologies. She just needed to leave before her legs gave out beneath the weight of the betrayal. She turned around. She walked out. And that was the day she buried the girl who once believed in forever. Back home, she didn't cry. Not right away. She stared at her reflection for hours, tracing every line of her face, looking for signs of where she had gone wrong. Was she too soft, too trusting, too herself? Days passed. Messages came. From Arav, from Meher, from mutual friends who were shocked and didn't know what to say. But Rhea didn't respond. She disappeared from their world. From social media, from group chats, from the city itself, people said she was heartbroken. But Ria wasn't broken. She was waking up, and her silence, it wasn't a weakness, it was the beginning of the storm. Chapter 2. The Night She Burned Without a Sound. Part 2 of The Velvet Rose. Some heartbreaks scream, some bleed in silence. Ria's, it burned, slow and invisible, like incense in a room no one enters. When she left Arav's apartment that night, she didn't run. She walked, one foot after the other, like she was carrying the weight of the ocean inside her. No one stopped her, not Arav, not Meher. That silence said everything. She got into a cab. Her hands were shaking, but her face was still numb. The driver asked, "Madam, where to?" She opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. The city outside was blurring into lights and noise, but inside her, everything had gone quiet. She gave her address like a robot. And then she pressed her forehead to the window and finally let the first tear fall. Just one. The rest would come later. Home was supposed to be safe. But when she walked into her apartment, it didn't feel like hers anymore. The cushions on the couch, the teacups in the kitchen, the Polaroids on the fridge, Arav was in all of them. His scent still lingered in her blankets. His hoodie still hung behind the door. She walked through her space like a stranger, heart beating like it might rip through her ribs. And then, when she reached her room, it broke. Her knees gave in. She collapsed on the floor. No grace, no control. And she wept, ugly, loud, gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere too deep to name. The kind of cry that only betrayal knows. The kind of cry that sounds like death, not of life, but of faith. How could they? Two people she loved with every fiber of her soul had ripped her open and left her bleeding in the very place she had built her dreams. Ria didn't sleep that night. She just sat there, staring into space, the room dark except for the blinking city lights outside her window. Her phone lit up again and again with their names. Arav, please talk to me. Ria, it's not what it looked like. You mean the world to me. Meher, I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. You don't understand, it just happened. Please, I love you, don't shut me out. And the worst one of all. Arav, we didn't mean to hurt you. That made her laugh. A bitter, broken laugh. Didn't mean to? What did they mean to do then? Love each other behind her back but still keep her as their favorite accessory? Like some emotional side dish they could always come back to when their thrill faded? No, that night, something inside Ria shattered, but something else started to grow. Not revenge, not yet. It was something quieter, more dangerous, resolve. For 3 days, she didn't leave her apartment. She shut the curtains, turned off her phone, and let herself feel every second of the heartbreak. She read their old texts, watched old videos, let herself break over and over again. And then, on the 4th day, she got up, tied her hair, took a shower, looked at herself in the mirror and said, "This is the last day they get to have power over me." Ria didn't tell anyone, but she had made a decision. She was leaving, not forever, but long enough to disappear from the version of herself they had known. She left a note on her desk for her landlord. She emailed her workplace, resigned quietly, and booked a one-way ticket to Shimla. A quiet mountain town with more pine trees than people and air cold enough to freeze memories. She didn't tell Meher. She didn't call Arav. She didn't give anyone a chance to apologize, explain, or lie. She packed a single suitcase, clothes, journal, a photo of her mother, and a copy of her favorite poetry book, Milk and Honey, its pages worn and stained with old tears. When the cab pulled up to the airport, she stepped outside and felt the city air one last time. The same air that once held his laughter, her dreams, their memories. She took a deep breath and let it go. The flight was quiet. She stared at the clouds, thinking how strange it was that life could fall apart in hours. That love could rot from the inside and still look perfect on the outside. That the people you trust with your soul could be the ones to carve it up the most. But there was a strange peace in knowing she had nothing left to lose. She had touched rock bottom. And from there, the only way was up. Shimla welcomed her with fog and silence. She found a small guest house run by an old couple who didn't ask questions. Only gave her tea and warm blankets. For the first few days, she just walked. Through pine forests, up empty roads, breathing in the cold air and letting it numb her insides. No one here knew her. No one expected her to smile or explain. She could be nothing. And that meant, for the first time, she could become anything. She found a job at a local publishing house. Quiet work, editing manuscripts, replying to emails. The kind of peaceful routine that stitched her soul together, thread by thread. She began journaling every night. Raw, brutal entries, not for anyone else, just for herself. Pages full of, I don't miss him. I miss the version of me that believed in him. Meher didn't just steal my boyfriend. She stole the girl I told my secrets to. I won't forgive them, not because I'm cruel, but because I'm not done healing. And slowly, her pain became poetry. Her heartbreak, art. She painted. She ran. She started yoga. She read books on trauma, on self-worth, on how to let go of people who never truly held you. She cried some nights, but she smiled on others. And those smiles weren't for anyone. Not a man, not a friend. They were for her. The world she left behind? It had moved on. Arav and Meher posted photos, together. Trips, smiles, captions like what's meant to be, will be. But she didn't react, didn't block them. She simply stopped watching. Let them play lovers in a story built on betrayal. She was too busy writing her own. And so, she stayed in Shimla. Healing quietly, bleeding in poetry, transforming, becoming the storm that would return, not to destroy, but to remind them. The girl they broke, she didn't just survive, she rose. And one day, they would regret ever thinking she was weak enough to stay broken. Chapter 3, The Becoming. Part 3 of The Velvet Rose. Time, they say, doesn't heal everything. But what you do with your time, that can change everything. 6 months had passed since Ria left Mumbai. 6 months since she last saw Arav's eyes or Meher's smirk. 6 months since she had tasted betrayal on her tongue and swallowed the silence like poison. And still, not a word to either of them. No closure, no forgiveness, only distance. The kind that doesn't just measure in miles, but in growth. Shimla, with its misty mornings and echoing quiet, had become more than her hiding place. It had become her forge, where grief was melted and reshaped into power. Ria no longer wandered like a ghost of her old self. She woke at 5 a.m. now. Not because she had to, but because she could. She ran on cold roads lined with frost, the sting of mountain air in her lungs reminding her that she was alive. That her heart, broken as it once was, still beat. Louder, stronger, she began reading everything she could get her hands on, not love stories. But stories of resilience, women who had been torn apart and still chose to rebuild. Memoirs, essays, therapy books. She studied emotional trauma like it was a subject she needed to master. Because in a way, it was. But what saved her most was writing. It started with a single blog post. Anonymous, titled, The Girl Who Wasn't Chosen. She poured her soul into it, the betrayal, the rage, the humiliation, the numbness. Every paragraph felt like opening a wound and cleaning it with fire. But when she hit publish, something shifted. Within a day, it had gone viral. Thousands of comments, women, men, strangers, saying, "This is my story too. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. Please write more." She wasn't alone, and neither were they. For the first time, her pain had a purpose. She began writing daily, posts, poems, letters she never sent. And then, she wrote a book. Not for fame, not for money, just so that the girl who was once shattered on the floor of her bedroom could hold something in her hands and say, "This came from my breaking, and it's beautiful." The book was titled, Letters I Never Sent. It was raw, lyrical, vulnerable. She didn't pitch it to publishers. She self-published. She didn't expect much. But within a month, it exploded. People weren't just reading it. They were clinging to it. Celebrities reposted it. Mental health pages quoted it. Bookstores began requesting author events. Magazines asked for interviews. Who was this mysterious woman with words like fire and wounds like wings? Ria, once just a betrayed lover, had become something else entirely. She was no longer a name they whispered in pity. She was now a name they said with awe. Her Instagram, once a gallery of smiles with Arav and Meher, was reborn. Now, it held images of sunsets, pages from her journal. Poems scribbled on napkins, captions like, You didn't break me, you just woke me up. My silence was never weakness. It was preparation. Dear heartbreak, thank you for clearing the space for something better. The irony, Arav followed her silently, so did Meher. She could see them, always watching, never daring to comment. Let them watch, let them witness what they couldn't kill. One day, she was invited to speak at a TEDx event in Delhi. The theme? Rebuilding from ruins. She stepped on stage wearing a simple black sari, a silver nose ring, and the calm grace of someone who had nothing to prove, only something to say. Her talk didn't mention names, didn't point fingers, but every word carried the weight of what she had lived through. I thought the worst thing someone could do to me was lie, cheat, betray. I was wrong. The worst thing would have been if I never rose from it. But I did, and I'm not special. I'm just proof that healing isn't pretty, but it's always worth it. The crowd rose to their feet, and somewhere, miles away, the people who had once made her feel small were now staring at a screen, watching what she had become. It was only after the standing ovation, backstage with her palms still tingling from adrenaline, that she allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She had built something from her grief. But it wasn't a castle to keep others out. It was a sanctuary to bring others in. Still, there were nights when her heart felt heavy, when she remembered Arav's laugh, Meher's voice, the dreams she had once built with trembling hope. Healing didn't erase the memories. It only made them softer, less sharp, like touching a scar, not a wound. And in those moments, she'd whisper to herself, "They didn't ruin me. They rerouted me." And so, Rhea continued. Not chasing revenge, but embracing rebirth. They had tried to break her. But in doing so, they built the woman they could never touch again. A woman made of ink and wildfire. A woman who no longer needed to be chosen. Because she had finally chosen herself. Thank you for watching The Velvet Rose. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales on The Velvet Story. This is just the beginning of her comeback. Watch part 2 to see how she rises and turns the tables. Subscribe to The Velvet Story so you don't miss what happens next.